Hi, I'm Celeste from the Every Step of the Way property group.
And I'm Jess and I work alongside Celeste.
Today we're going to talk about how we value a property and what's involved behind the scenes in going out to do the valuation and how we get the price that we come up with, etc., aren't we, Jess?
It's always the starting, isn't it, for getting a property on the market with us, so...
Yeah. So first of all, where do we get our valuations from actually is quite an important one. How do we get properties on the market? As we always say in every single episode and every conversation that we have, communication, contact sport. So the more people that we speak to, the more business that we generate. So valuations typically come from one recommendation. That's a really key one. So as everybody knows, I've been in the industry a long time, so I get lots of repeat business and clients coming back to me and old clients recommending the company. So that's one area where we get our properties from and our valuations. Social media is another one. We get a lot of people watching these videos and obviously viewing our properties online, etc. Might see a property they like and then inquire about that, and then obviously we go out to value their property on the back of that. And calls. So we've got a database, a huge database, which I've worked with for years, and there's lots of people on there. Lots of people on there. And naturally, obviously, when we're phoning out and making calls, we're picking up valuations from there, aren't we? So yes, the valuations tend to come to us from our database, from recommendation, from social media, and from proactively going out and making the calls to generate the business, don't they? Also, valuations come from, so when we take a house on the market, quite often we get clients phoning up, don't we, that want to view, and then they have a property to sell themselves. Yeah. So again, obviously, what's called chain building. Actually, this is quite a key one. Actually, we'll talk in a minute about obviously what we do on a valuation, but chain building's quite crucial in our industry. So house swapping as well. So when you've got agents that really know what they're doing, I might go out on a valuation, for example, and I go and sit in that client's living room and value their property, and I'll say to them, do you know what, I've got somebody that would probably be interested in this. I valued their house, whenever it was, or let me get them in to come and have a look first before it comes to the market. They then come in, have a look and say, yes, we want it. Then I might have somebody else that I know that's interested in theirs. And then you have what's called chain building within the company. So that's quite a big one that we do. So sometimes we get properties that don't even actually come to the market or go out on the portals because we've already got clients in our back pocket, if you like, in our head that we know that would want to buy that property. And again, house swapping. I've actually done quite a number of house swaps over the years where I'll go out to a client and I'll sit in their lounge and I say, do you know what, I've got something that might be interested in yours, and actually you might be interested in theirs. And then what happens is you go and do the viewing with one of our clients, I go and do the viewing with the other, we both finish, and then they say yes, they want it, and they end up doing a house swap. That's a nice easy transaction for everybody, because you have none of this chains falling through and pulling out, etc., because they're literally just doing a nice house swap. Yeah. So that is actually quite common, but the only time you ever really get the house swapping situation really is when you've got a really good, savvy, clued up agent that knows their stuff, knows their clients, and is banking obviously those thoughts of potential chain building and house swaps, etc. So anyway, we were going to talk about valuing and how we value our properties. So we have a valuation come into the office. The first thing we will do is Jess and I will put together some
comparables, won't we?
And put together a pack of information, obviously, to go out on that valuation. So the information that we gather is, one, obviously, we've got my experience over the last 23 or so years. So I know my market, I know the area, I know properties I've sold over the years. So I can pretty much straight off the top of my head know what a property's worth. But that just comes with experience. And then obviously you've got your online information. So us as agents, we have access to what you call the back end of like Rightmove, Zoopla, on the market, etc. So we can go into the back end of the portals. So unlike if you were searching for a property, for example, you can see what's available and there's certain information that you can get, but we've got extra access where we can get into the back end of the systems and go and have a look at old stock that's come off the market, that's sold, etc.
Just backs us up, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Just backs it
and
up.
we can build up reports from that to show when we go out to the clients. We can go through those reports and click the properties that we think are obviously relevant to that particular property. We can then also have a look on land registry to see what they actually achieved. So a property might be marketed, just say for instance 500,000, but actually when we look on land registry it might have completed and ended up at 475 or whatever. So we can see what the marketing price was, how long it's been on the, how long it was on the market for, the price reductions that took place, and also obviously what the final result was. Yeah. So we get, obviously, as I said, I can literally off the top of my head pretty much have a figure in mind. And when we look at all the key facts behind the scenes and back end of the portals to gather that information to prove basically where the valuation is coming from and where, and where we're getting our figure from. We use a good system actually called Sprift. Sprift is is really good, and I think it's quite good for buyers as well, because you can do reports on this system where it gives the title number, it shows the it links up obviously so the title, so you can see where the boundary lines are, you can see any planning history, you can see local planning history, you can get comparable evidence as well of properties that have sold.
You can sometimes see what even the last person who bought it for.
You can see, you can see obviously what they paid for it. Also, when we book an evaluation, some of the key things we have to ask is, what have you done to the property since you bought it? Because, yes, there is a certain amount of the properties go up a certain amount, a level obviously, but if somebody's gone in, so we can see what they paid for it maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago, whatever it might be, they might have paid, say for example 250 for a property. There will be a certain leverage obviously there of what how much the property is increased by. But if that person's gone in since they bought it back in 5 years ago, whatever it may be, and they've extended the property and they've done renovations to the property, etc., those are things that we need to take into account obviously when we're going out to value that.
It was so good though that we actually go there as well and we look at it with our own eyes, and it's not all just on the phone, it's not all just online and everything like that, 'cause obviously it's a lot different in person.
You can get, so as a consumer you can go on to sort of these portals of how much is my house worth, like on Zoopla and various other portals, and you can get a rough idea, but they're never accurate, and they're not always accurate. If you were in a road, for example, where there's 10 two-bedroom terraced houses and they're all the same, of course they're all going to be similar sort of prices, there's not really much difference in there. But you might go to a road where all the properties are so different. Well, that's very difficult for a computer system to analyse and get you the exact information, because it's not like sort of valuing in a road. It's only the computer's only as good as the information that it can gather and obviously put in. So when you actually have a valuation and you have an experienced agent coming out to you, for example, when you have an experienced agent coming out to you, we can obviously give a more accurate valuation, one from knowledge and one from obviously comparable evidence and other properties that have sold within the area. So we compiled obviously a pack together where we get all the comparable evidence, we look at properties that we might have sold as well, and then we put all of that together, don't we?
We're quite used to the area that we're around as well, because we cover, is it Hampshire, Dorset and Wiltshire? And you've been here all your life, really, haven't you? You've been down in Hampshire all your life.
So I've actually covered in my career extremely wide area. So as obviously I've said in the past, I've been a business owner since 2010. But prior to that, I've worked for corporates and independents, estate agents along the way, and I've worked in various different areas. So I started my career, for example, in Chandler's Ford, so I know Chandler's Ford inside out. I've worked in Eastleigh, I've worked in Winchester, I've worked in Bishop's Waltham, I've worked in the Test Valley, Romsey, etc. I'm actually, I could be a taxi driver, I know all the roads. I'm just kidding, but I do have obviously a vast knowledge of a big wide area, and you're absolutely right, the areas we cover, Hampshire, Wiltshire, Dorset, and when we take a property on the market, I have taken properties on the market completely out of our area, etc., but it's being able to manage those properties and making sure that it's effective for everybody. So, you've got to take into account, for example, the travelling time to each property, and also the local knowledge that you have of the area. So it's quite key, I think, to concentrate on your core areas of where you're familiar with and the areas that you know, and also being able to service those properties as well, and making sure that it's beneficial, cost effective, etc. as a company to do that.
We live in Hampshire, right? We obviously cover Dorset as well, but that's why you've got licensees, because they cover those areas.
Yeah, so we do have a couple of licensees on board at the moment, and they're covering Salisbury, and in particular Salisbury and Dorset, and a base there. So we do get a few properties on sort of out of our main core areas of where yourself and I are based, Jess. So going back to obviously what we do when we value a property. So we do all the sort of initial putting the evidence together, and then we go out and attend the property. Sometimes as well, if somebody's extended, etc., and I'm not quite sure, I'll go and have a quick drive past, just have a look at where it's situated and what exactly they've done. So I'm not caught too much on the hop when I go out on the valuation, that I know what I'm talking about, and I'm getting the right comparable evidence together when I go out to do the valuation. So quite often on a valuation, once we've put everything together, I will go out and attend. Sometimes I take you along with me, don't I? And we go and meet the client, have a look around the property. Typically, I think when somebody is booking a valuation, they usually have sort of 2 or 3 valuations, don't they?
Some other agents, yeah.
Yeah. And then obviously we give a price, etc., of what we feel the property's worth. So we will go and have a look at the property, and sometimes obviously Jess will be with me, so the two of us will confer together, and I might say to Jess, what do you reckon it's worth? Put her on the spot a little bit, and she'll give me her thoughts, and I might say, yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Or sometimes obviously I might say, well, actually I think it's a little bit more, and these are the reasons why.
It's all about knowledge as well, You've got a lot more knowledge than I do about this at the moment, so yeah.
So another area when we go out and value a property, it's not just obviously about obviously price, and it's about talking about what we do and how we're different to other estate agents, and putting together obviously a plan of action with our clients. But also when we go out and value a property, there's other things that we need to take into account, whether that's if it's a freehold property or whether it's a leasehold property, for example. So question we often get, I mean, I've had clients in the past say to me, obviously I've talked to them about putting their house on the market, and then they've said, oh yeah, but you only deal with the higher end market and I've got a flat. No, we deal with every aspect of the market. But I will say that, okay, so what is our, predominantly what area of the market we deal with? We do tend to sort of attract more the middle to higher end market.
I think that's just because of where we are based.
Yeah, and also what we say is stock breed stock. So, if somebody's, for example, looking to sell their home, they will go on to the agent to see who's got similar properties like mine and who's selling them, and obviously it tracks that certain end of the market. So, and also where I've been in the industry for as long as I have, a lot of people do relate to me as sort of dealing with the sort of middle to higher end market, if you like, and also because of the area that we cover. The areas that we cover, a lot of the properties obviously middle to higher end market, but we do anything from sort of a 1-bed studio apartment, for example, up to 10-bedroom nice estate property or what have you. So we deal with all aspects of the market, but when going out and valuing a property, obviously we've got to take into account things like freehold and leasehold properties, and actually there's a huge amount of legwork that's involved in leasehold properties.
Yes, there is.
And there's a lot there, so there's a lot more involved in that. So the conveyancing side of things, once an offer's been agreed, quite often that can be a little bit slower than a normal residential freehold property, for example, because there's more detail that has to be go through. Yeah. So with a leasehold property, for example, when we put a sale together, the solicitors quite often will have to go to the freeholder to get the management packs, and quite often that can be a slow process, because if the management company aren't very forthcoming in getting that information across, then that tends to hold up a transaction a little bit. But also with leasehold properties, so for example, typically a leasehold property will be 125-year lease usually when they put on, but you do get some properties that are 999 years, don't you? 900. We've got some lovely flats in Salisbury actually. Yeah. We've got 14 apartments there, and so they're in a block of 14 apartments, and they're all 999-year leases. So if you're buying a property 999-year lease, that's just as good as a freehold. Yeah. So we go out and do the valuation and give the client obviously the price of what they think it's worth. Sometimes we get instructed there and then. So a client might say, yep, we're happy to go ahead, and off we go. And it takes approximately sort of a week to 10 days to get up and running once we've been out and valued a property to put it on the market, doesn't it? Because we've got, what do you do, Jess, when we go back to the office if we get instructed on it?
We get professional photos booked in straight away. I think that's one of the main first things, isn't it?
Paperwork.
We get the contracts and you get all the contracts done first and the IDs, and that's it has all in the contract as well about the professional photos, and just to make sure they're all okay with it. But then after that's all signed and completed and okay, we then get the professional photos all booked in straight away, as quick as we can, really, don't we? Because that's obviously quite needed for marketing. But then we get the brochure and all that little bits. Ready.
So quite often we get instructed, won't we, there and then on the property, and then we come away and we do all the paperwork side and get everything up and running. We do everything electronically as well, so it's all quite quick, isn't it? But one of the things I would say about when you're getting a house valued, it's always good to have sort of 2 or 3 valuations just to get an idea on, price, and that the agents are saying the same things, because sometimes they can vary, especially if a property is a little bit individual. There was one incident recently where I went out and I valued, and I was like, okay, this is my valuation, and how did you get on with the other agents? And she said to me, you're all, that 2 of you, myself and another agent, were in par and on the same figure, and then there was one agent that valued it 100 grand less. And it was like, really? Well, where are they getting their evidence from for that? And again, it might be just maybe lack of experience, newer in the industry, or not getting the correct information or doing their research correctly. But it's always good to get 2 or 3, so you know. If the agents are all saying the same figure, or they're in par a little bit, then you can sort of get a rough idea. I mean, at the end of the day, there has been situations, for example, where I might have been a bit over optimistic and gone out and thought I might be able to get X. Well, actually, there has to be a little bit of leniency in the price. But I'm always quite conservative when I go out and do my valuations. I'll never raise my clients' expectations too much in regards to price. I'd rather be realistic and over deliver than under deliver. That's actually quite a key point. There's a lot of agents, aren't there, out there that will. The difference, what I would say is, the difference between ourselves and sort of a corporate agency, for example, is this is my business, so I care. I only get paid on results. There's no point in me going out and overvaluing a property and over-delivering on, basically overvaluing a property, and then that property not selling, because that's not doing any of us any good. That's literally just going to, 1, damage my reputation, 2, we're not going to get you sold, and 3, you end up doing more damage than good, because all that happens is you end up having to chip away at the price. And if you priced it at the right figure to start with, you would have potentially done better than sitting on the market for longer with a higher figure, than having to keep coming down, because the best level of interest is at the first phase of marketing. So if you get your price right at the first phase of marketing and you get the good level of interest, then that is the best time. The longer it's been on, the more people get to see it, and it starts sitting around a little bit and can go a bit stagnant, etc. And then that's when you have to do the price adjustments and things. So it's really key to try and be realistic when you're putting a house on the market. So you do get some agents, for example, like some of the corporate agents, where they're heavily targeted on how many instructions that they get, and what have you. So what they will do is, in order to get their figures and get their targets and get their bonuses, they will go out and overvalue just purely to get the business. And then once they've got the business, they tie you into like a 3-month contract or more. You're stuck with them. You can't get away with you can't get out of the contract. And then you end up like chipping away at the price. And I must say, sometimes in the past, I've been out on a valuation and another agent's gone in and overvalued it. And I've walked away from it. and said, I'd rather walk away because I'm not going to be able to deliver on what you're wanting me to do because it's unrealistic.
Well, that's the thing. Everyone's going to want more money. You know, of course everyone wants more money for their own property.
It's absolutely, you know, at the end of the day, it's your asset you're selling. Of course, you want the best possible result, but you've got to be realistic. And what tends to happen is like I say, in the past, I've walked away from an instruction because it's just unrealistic, and then they end up coming back to me 3-6 months later saying, you were right, we haven't sold it, you know, and then you end up getting the instruction a second time round, and then they come down to the value that maybe you'd valued it at, or a more realistic figure. But you do need to be really careful when putting a house on the market, that you put it at the right value, and that you don't overcook it.
It just stays there, you know.
It's going to end up going stagnant, and then everybody loses the obviously it becomes disheartening for everybody, doesn't it?
It will just lay on the market for a while, and you just need to get it at that good price.
You need to put it at the right price, and it is all about obviously achieving the best possible results for our clients, and then naturally we're always going to get the best possible price that we can, but also you've got to be realistic. And for example, I've taken properties on in the past, and we've got full asking price on the first viewing, and the seller said to me, oh, it's only the first viewing, I think I'd like to just hang out and see if I can get a bit more. And I've seen it happen time and time again, and as I said, the first phase of marketing is when you get the best interest. So if you get a full asking price offer on your first viewing, etc., that is great. That doesn't mean that you've undervalued it. No. That means that you've got just that right buyer, and they've literally, you've gone straight onto the market and they've gone, that's the house I want, and they've offered full asking price. Then the seller says to you, well, I think I might, I want to sit it out, because I think I might want to see if I can try and get a bit more. And I've seen this happen in the past, and they sit it out, and then they end up kicking themselves, wishing they took that first offer, because that was the best offer that they were going to get. And that's when, if you think about it, when a house first comes on the market, that's when you're going to get, the best level of interest. You get the hype, it's fresh, it's new, it's just come on. That's when the excitement's there. After a little while, if it's been on and you don't, that first initial offer, they then lose interest, and you might not be able to claw them back and get that back again, because they think, well, you've actually, had to wait, and, they want the property. So, that's a mistake not to be made, I think, is if you do get a full asking price offer on your first viewing or the first phase of marketing, doesn't necessarily mean you've overpriced it. It's just because that's where the interest is best at the initial stages of marketing, I would say.
That's why you also put it on at that price, that's why you also said to the vendors or something, that's why you've been like, you think it's around this price because you think it'll get the best interest at that price.
The thing is, I think you've got to trust your agent as well. When you're putting a house on the market, it's about trusting the information that you've been given and the advice that you're being given. And if you can trust your agent, and that agent's got the knowledge and it's got the experience, then that is really key as well. In knowing that agent working for you is out for your best interest, is going to get you the best possible result, and is advising you correctly on the price and giving you factual evidence of what your property is worth. Naturally, you can do your own research as well. I quite often go out to clients and I'll say to clients, what were your expectations? And they say, yeah, that's bang on the money, or I was hoping for a little bit more, or actually that's more than I expected. But usually if your agent's done their job and due diligence correctly, they will know what your property is worth.
Exactly.
So another subject that we've been talking about recently, and something that I've seen on a lot of the social media and discussions that are having, especially between agents, is, and it was quite interesting actually, it was the title, is Rightmove your best employee? And I was reading a lot of the comments, etc., about this, and I thought, you know what, that is actually it was quite an interesting conversation, because a lot of agents do rely on just the portals doing the work. And when you put a property on the market, it's not just about putting on the portals and crossing your fingers and hoping for the best. And if agents are doing that, especially in this current market, then they're not doing their jobs correctly, and they're the ones that aren't going to be around or surviving, because all that happens is the employees end up becoming Rightmove employers and literally call handlers. for the inquiries that are coming in.
Well, that's where we differ though, isn't it? Because we go out and we'll or that database we have is quite a big one, isn't it? But that's why we're a lot different to these other some other people. You know, it's not everyone, it's not every single estate agent.
No.
But you're right, you do get some people who just sit, like just wait for the phone to ring. You've got to be out there making the phone calls. You know, it goes both ways completely, and that's what we do.
Yeah,
don't we?
I think that there's a lot to be said about, especially in tougher markets, going out and going that extra mile and actually putting in a lot more legwork than just, you know, sitting on the portals and hoping for the best, because it's those days are gone. You know, it is about putting in.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, Rightmove is great. You know, obviously it's a massive platform that we can use, but then you've also got to be taking, because there's a whole back end as well to Rightmove, which we use, don't we?
When I first launched Every Step of the Way, and we were a new business, for the first few months, I didn't advertise on Rightmove at all. Oh, yeah. I was on other portals, such as On the Market and Zoopla, okay? And they are really good platforms as well. Yes, everybody tends to go to Rightmove first, but your serious buyers will also look on the other platforms. They will look on Zoopla, they will look on the Market, and they will look on social media. Now, as I say, for the first few months when I launched Every Step of the Way, I actually didn't advertise on Rightmove. Did it affect my business? No. I still got the same levels of inquiries coming in. They might have been slightly slower in coming in the fact that when I launched a property, when you launch a property on Rightmove, the phones ring straight away. When I wasn't on Rightmove and I launched on the Market in Zoopla, for example, I would get some calls, but sometimes what happens is I suddenly got the calls coming in about 4 days later, because the first place people are going Rightmove, then they start looking at on the Market, then they start looking at Zoopla. But did it affect my business? No, it didn't. It didn't affect my business at all. It didn't affect the number of inquiries that I was getting. It didn't affect the viewings, and it didn't affect the number of sales that I was getting. What it did affect was when I was going out on valuations and trying to win the business. So I would go out and sit in a client's living room, and they would say, "Are you on Rightmove? But you're not on Rightmove." "No, I'm not on Rightmove, but we don't need to be on Rightmove because X, Y, and Z." But trying to get that message across was quite tricky, because Rightmove are so dominant in the marketplace that in the end I ended up buckling and going back onto Rightmove because sellers wanted to be seen on Rightmove. But realistically, and as I've said in the past, I think over time things will change. And I think us agents get very frustrated with the costs of Rightmove, for example, as agents, because it's very, very costly to advertise on Rightmove, etc. And those agents that are then using Rightmove as an employee to do the job for them, when actually, if you're hitting the phones, if you're doing your jobs correctly, if you're going back to how it was, you know, back in the old school way of doing things, then you are going to get the business. If you are purely relying on just Rightmove to be your employee, then no.
Well, I think it's all portals actually in a way though as well, because I was on the phone with someone the other day, you know, and they hadn't actually seen, so they gave me their price budget and that, and I said, oh well we've got this, you know, that might be of interest, and they're like, oh, where's that? And I'll tell them about where it is, and they're like, oh, they haven't seen that on Rightmove or on the Market or anything like that. And then what I'll do is send over the brochure, send over our video link, and that's nothing to do with any of these portals.
No,
you know, it's purely just from the phone.
Yeah, so I think the portals do a certain amount of work. Yes. Of course they do, and you've got to be out there, but they shouldn't be doing. Like some agents, they shouldn't be doing all your work for you, because actually, as I say, in this current climate, for example, if you're just relying on the portals to do the job and you're your main employee, then your business isn't going to survive. Because, in my opinion, obviously, because there's this, you've got to be really far more on it, more than normal now. Into for some agents, for example, I mean, it's all about consistency. We do this every day. So for us, yes, we're on the phones. Yes, we're doing the portals. Yes, we're doing the social media. We work like that. That's just typically how we work. But there are some competitors out there that don't work like that. And and that do just rely on the portals, etc. And I don't think really that's going to work, and you'll start seeing agents fail because of that.
I think it's just because obviously no, it's not everyone, but a lot of agents are doing that.
Yeah, just relying on Rightmove as the main employer.
Because it is such a big platform.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, but actually, it's not. As I've just mentioned a minute ago, it's not really the platform that's bringing in the levels of business, because, as I say, I went for months without advertising on it. And did it affect my business? No, it didn't, because I was doing all the other things. I was doing the database, like you say, and picking up extra business from there that actually the portals wouldn't have been able to do. We were doing all the social media stuff. I mean, the amount of inquiries that I get coming in from Marketplace on Facebook, we get, and they say, oh, could you send me the link? And we don't send the portal links, do we? We send the videos from YouTube, because we think that's better, and also wanted to steer away from the portals a little bit. But when your generation, we talked about this a little while back, didn't we? A lot of you guys don't even know what Rightmove is. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of like you talked about the places where a lot of the younger generation will go is Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. TikTok's massive now, isn't it?
Huge.
Yeah.
We've just started that, haven't we?
Started
doing a bit of TikTok now, so go check out our TikTok account.
But yeah, and video content is, as we say, is huge, isn't it? So thank you for watching Coffee with Celeste. If you've got any comments or anything you'd like to suggest to us about the conversations that we've had today, then feel free to drop us a line. Or if you've got any questions that you want answering as well for our next episode, feel free to drop some questions in, and we will be happy to hopefully be able to answer those for you.